For more, we're now joined by former special agent for the United States Secret Service, Andrew O'Connell. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Certainly, speculation runs rampant, too early to have a full assessment. But in your professional opinion, watching that response, trying to understand how a 20-year-old was able to get a clean shot at the former president of the United States on his pathway to be hopefully becoming the 47th president of the United States of America, how did you see all of those things transpiring?
Well, the first thing I thought about in order is what was the protective intelligence on the shooter? Did they know anything about the shooter? Did the Secret Service have any information about him? You know, when the Secret Service travels around the United States and around the world, they already have what's called protective intelligence about who potential assassins might be, who the bad guys are, maybe some mentally ill folks who have written to the White House or called the White House. They have this. So first question is, was there any information in the possession of the Secret Service about this shooter? The second question is the advance. Every time the president travels around the United States, around the world, there's an advance that's done. Agents and officers from the Secret Service go out with the president or vice president's staff or a campaign staff, and they look at the site. It's the job of the staff to get the protectee out into the public so that everybody sees him. They want his maximum exposure. The Secret Service wants to minimize the risks from that exposure. So they're there to look at the site and determine what the risks are. And, you know, relevant to what happened here, a big thing is line of sight. What's the line of sight to the podium where the president was speaking? And what do you do to minimize the risk that something will come from that particular direction? You want to have some obstruction there if you can do it. And if you can't do that, you want to have somebody standing post on that particular position so that line of sight risk is covered. So the next thing I want to look at, also part of the advance would be coordinating with state and local law enforcement.
Right.
You meet with them, you talk with them. Who's going to do what? If somebody sees something, what are you going to do about it? How is the communication process going to go? How do you put out to the Secret Service, the counter snipers on the rooftop, that there's a man with a gun climbing up onto a rooftop? How do you get that to them? So that's something we'd want to look at as well. What was the coordination with state and local? What was the communication process? And then during the shooting, you know, what was the communication? You know, I saw witnesses saying they told the police that they saw somebody climbing up to the roof and with a gun. What did the police do with that information? How long did it take to make its way to the counter sniper officers on the rooftop? And then when they received the information, what did they do? I've seen some video that shows them in action. It looks like they're seeing something up there. You know, how long did it take them to spot the shooter once they received information about something on the roof? If they did receive it, how long did it take? How did he get so many shots off before they killed him? So these are all questions that I'd want answered. And then lastly, just to say, is the detail around the president, President Trump, how did they act? How did they do in getting on top, cover, evacuate? How did all that go? So there's a lot to be looked at here.
Sure. You mentioned, Andrew, the advanced team looking ahead at possible soft targets that could be areas of concern. And we talk about this rooftop at a building that apparently was only a few hundreds of meters away. You know, was this a missed opportunity? The fact that there was no local law enforcement or no Secret Service agent who was stationed there on that rooftop to begin with?
Well, it's unclear what the advance team saw when they got out there. Obviously, you're going to see that building. You're going to be standing at the podium looking out at that building. Perhaps you're going to go walk the roof of that building. Certainly on the president's detail, President Biden and the actual incumbent president, you're going to have Secret Service agents posted on what you call line of sight. So I don't know what the line of sight here. It looks like pretty clearly that you could see that rooftop from the podium. I also saw photos of the roof that it was kind of sloped. So was the shooter climbing up the back end of the slope, and why was that a blind spot for the Secret Service? Maybe they didn't notice him until he reached the peak, at which point they saw him and they took action. So you're right. This is all about the advance. What was done during the advance? What did they request? I mean, we know there was one counter sniper team out there. Did they request more? I don't know. Probably this is the one package that travels with President Trump wherever he goes. So you have one counter sniper team out there. You have limited resources. Did they ask for more? Was it rejected? Was it approved? These are all questions that need to be answered.
Absolutely. Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time. We appreciate your expertise weighing in with us this morning.